Hey, welcome to episode 127 of Shunya One. How is it going, Amit? How are
It's
things?
been interesting, man. I mean, challenging times and whatnot, but I mean, plugging away, trying to get things done, trying to move along.
Yeah, sitting in our homes longer than we ever thought we would. Still doing
I
this. However
20
crazy, like the world's burning outside, literally, it seems. And
24 days I have not left my building. I can't believe that 24 days. I don't think I've ever done that, right? Even in last year's initial lockdown pandemic stuff, right? I think that I was out. I had left the house by the 15th of April for some stuff,
yeah,
right? And it's just like I can't remember the last time this much time. It's just incredible how much time we spent at home. But
and
hey, it is what it is, right? I mean, our friends in Bangalore and Delhi are struggling, and I mean, like Bombay is fortunately not as bad as it was 2 weeks ago. But
yeah,
thoughts and prayers for guys, for all of our cohorts, I guess, right? People who we are potential guests and what have you. So
yeah. In
hope everybody's
fact,
doing well.
the only thing, I mean, the reason why, of course, why we are still able to do this is because, people are surprisingly using tech in
Hmm.
amazing ways to actually help. People are using obviously the power of the fact that people are contributing from their homes. They're
Hmm.
donating. They're doing so much online to whatever extent possible.
Yep.
And it's funny because the guest we have today is actually working on with and the company we're talking to today is actually a big company. It's a change for a change. It's a big platform
Like
company, and we're
huge. Yeah.
talking to
Is it?
them. Uh, and they are in fact instrumental in doing exactly what the need of the hour is, which is
Mhm.
like global transfer of money, payments, donations. I know a lot of people who are using
Yeah.
companies like the one we are
PayPal.
talking to today, PayPal.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, like
So
PayPal, donate on PayPal, right? That's just a thing today, isn't it? Just donate via
exactly,
PayPal, and
exactly.
it's something that a lot of people use as a measure of trust. So that's also great in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
So
very
we have our guest today. Of course, I will jump into letting him introduce himself. But we have Guru Bhat, the VP of Customer Success Platform and the GM of PayPal India, with us today. Hey, Guru, welcome to the show. And of course, I'd love if you can give us a quick background about yourself before we jump into this conversation.
Thank you, Shiladitya and Amit, and the entire Shunya One team. I'm really happy to be here today. And, I currently have a couple of different roles at PayPal. In one avatar, I'm the spiritual godfather, if you will, for PayPal in India. I lead the technology centers. We're inching every day closer and closer to being about 6,000 people and then beyond. We have a lot of hiring that we're doing. In that role, I take care of the three tech centers we have in Bangalore, Chennai, and Hyderabad. We have practically every aspect of PayPal represented across these three centers. Uh, Pretty much every technology team that is doing meaningful work at PayPal has some presence in these centers as well, in addition to globally being headquartered in San Jose. And in another role, I have a global role at PayPal, which is I'm the VP of the Customer Success Platform. In that role, I lead a team of product managers and engineers around the world who are currently working on a variety of different ways in which we can satisfy our customers when they reach out to us with issues. The primary use case obviously is customer service, but then there are other situations also that the customers interact in very intimate ways with PayPal. And in all of those, the technology that underpins those interactions is built by my team. So I've been at PayPal for a little over 5 years.
Wow.
It's been the ride of a lifetime in terms of being engaging, happy, stimulating, filled with learning, and of course meeting people who are infinitely smarter than me. So it's been fabulous.
Awesome. Awesome, Guru. Thank you for that quick introduction. And of course, the brand PayPal, and I've said this before, I, of course, understand the brand PayPal myself. I've been a user since way before. Probably it was so actively launched in India. But tell me, how has that journey for PayPal been in India's fintech scene exactly, right? I mean, you guys have been a global player all this while, and while India's fintech ecosystem has been emerging, and now I think we are a very active ecosystem. So what kind of role does PayPal play currently in its current avatar in India?
So we've had, if I'd probably start off by talking about our mission and vision, right, and why it has such strong alignment with what we are doing in India right now. So at its very heart, uh, the PayPal mission is to democratize access to financial services. So the idea is that when people are given equal access to the financial system, better outcomes result for themselves, their lives, their loved ones, as well as for the world. So, ensuring deep participation in the financial ecosystem and lowering the barriers to entry, that's what PayPal's mission is all about. And if you look at this, it's a worldwide problem. It's not unique to the developed world versus the developing world or anything like that. This is a common problem that even the most developed countries in the world have. Access to financial services is a problem, but especially so in India. So if you look at India, it's a diverse country of different sets of people, businesses of all sizes and shapes. But if you look at one which is a significant underpinning of the economy in India, it is the small and medium-sized enterprises.
Right.
Their access to the financial ecosystem is somewhat low. Their access to global markets is somewhat low, but the sheer virtuosity with which some of these small and medium-sized players do their work is incredible. I mean, just look at the handicrafts that come out of India. They're exquisite, right? Intricate paintings and artwork and sculptures and weaving and handlooms, uh, passed down from generation to generation in search of a global audience. But unfortunately, they are not the ones who can participate easily
Right.
in the local fintech ecosystem or the local e-commerce ecosystem, right? And for PayPal, it's the perfect marriage of purpose coupled with a need. Right? So we have
Right.
377 million customers around the world in search of exactly the kinds of unique products and services and experiences that they can get from around the world. And for
Right.
us to be able to marry a willing and very extremely qualified SME industry in India to a global audience, that's brilliant. Secondly, India is aspirational. It's a growing and extremely ambitious middle class that is constantly seeking ways in which it can consume products and services that are best of breed from around the world, right? And through PayPal, they have a trusted partner who can partner with them on payments. So if you're a customer in India who wants to buy something from overseas, it's very easy for you. PayPal is a default choice across multiple different properties around the world. And the safety and security with which you can transact, having peace of mind without having this fear in your heart, oh my God, should I give this credit card number to some unknown website in some dodgy country that I'm not aware of, but that looks really good. The product looks really good on the website. I want to buy it, but I'm not trusting it. Well, guess what? If you use PayPal, we've got your back.
Yeah.
So you've got this ability to just do that around the world. So both sides, that's the primary business
Yeah.
objective that we are satisfying. Giving Indian SMEs a global audience, giving Indian freelancers a global audience. There are so many people in India. They teach musical instruments, or they teach math, or physics, or science, or history. There are so many different people who have the skills to command a global audience for their products and services. And PayPal's mission is to help connect them.
That's awesome. In fact, the what you mentioned as the second largest thing is actually where my experience with PayPal began, right? Early days of the internet, I wanted to buy something online. I mean, anyway, the internet trust with credit card payments and all that came so much later into the country.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
early on, I think I remember it was just me trusting the PayPal logo on a website, or checkout via PayPal being the only trusted option instead of me adding my card on an unknown website. So that's my earliest experience. And now with what you just said, right, it's also empowering merchants to sort of participate in the overall ecosystem. So what would you, I mean, this focus on sort of security and overall building trust. You mentioned it's very core to your central theme. How could you elaborate on that? Like what is it that PayPal does so intensely in
What's
the
the
security
special
space?
sauce? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the secret sauce, right? Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
I'm going to
special
give
sauce.
away.
I'm guessing you're
Yeah.
not going to give us the secrets, but hopefully you can tell us the specialness.
No, I think this is this is, if you look at the payments business, right? It's a crowded business. There are so many players in the market today, and essentially, what is happening in a payment is somebody who wants to buy something is getting in contact with somebody who has something to sell, right? So you've got two parties. In the traditional sense, if you were physically in one place, it would be the equivalent of you going to a neighborhood store and trying to buy something. Now, in that equation, trust is somewhat implicit when it is physical because you probably lived in that area for a while, you've seen the shop for a while. They are brick and mortar in the sense that they're not disappearing in front of your eyes tomorrow. So
Mm,
if you have a problem, you can go back to them and at least confront them. Whether it gets resolved or not may be a different matter depending on your leverage. But then you have something to lean on, right? But if you translate this whole thing to the virtual world, you're in a situation where you've probably never seen this merchant, this seller. You have no idea where they are physically, if they even exist at all, or if they're just a figment of somebody's imagination. So all these fears are going through your mind. At lower transaction values, probably the risk for you is to say, you know what, that's okay. If I'm spending 5 rupees, if I lose it, I'm not going to, it's not going to hurt me that much. But if you're spending 10,000 rupees, 15,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees, you're going to think twice. So your ability to trust the other side becomes a key determinant in whether you even go ahead and complete the transaction or not.
Yeah.
Now, in that situation, what if you had a trusted intermediary who says, hey, you know what, I've got your back. I'm going to cover you. Go ahead. I know this person, you know me, and I will take care of the transaction for you. And I'll make sure that if something goes wrong, I will hand your money back to you. You're covered. That's what PayPal does. So the infusion of trust is essentially our business, right? Without that trust, we wouldn't have a business to run on. And the fact that there is a trust deficit on the internet, as you mentioned, and the fact that we are in a position to infuse that and bridge that deficit, that's our core value proposition. Now, how do we do it? It's the power of data. 377 million customers now and counting. On a daily basis, thousands join us. We've been in the business for 20 years, which means that over time, we have practically seen every kind of customer behavior and seller behavior there is. So
Mm.
our ability to sniff out a fraudulent transaction on any side of the equation is very high.
mm,
And there are even more complicated areas of fraud that I'll be happy to talk about. But what we do is rely on this treasure trove of data that we've built up over so many years in order for us within milliseconds when a transaction is happening to gauge whether this is going to be a safe transaction or not a safe transaction. Now, the reason why the milliseconds is important is because nobody wants to wait around with something spinning on your screen for a transaction to complete. By then, you've already spent ungodly amounts of time to pick out that specific shade of red t-shirt that you want to buy. You've added it to the shopping cart, and now all you want to do is get it, right? You want to go through the screens of making the payment, putting your address, and then you look forward to having it in your hands. So if something gets in the way of that, that's a bad experience. If something gets in the way and keeps spinning you around, that's not good. So the payment experience has to complete in a matter of milliseconds. And within those milliseconds, you have to assess whether it's going to be fraudulent or not, if all the pieces are adding up, if everything is okay, if this customer is who he or she says they are, if the seller is valid and legit, if the financial instrument that is being used, whether it's a debit card or a credit card or a bank account, or if all of that squares away, if the location from where the customer is transacting today is generally adding up to where they transact from usually, right?
mm.
If they always transact from New York and they've never transacted from anywhere else, and suddenly you see something from Ho Chi Minh City, that is something to worry about. Like, hey, what just happened here, right? So those kinds of things, all of those, taking care of them in a matter of milliseconds, that's the secret sauce for PayPal, right? And
Nice.
if you look at fraud loss, any entity that moves mountains of money like we do, just to give you a sense of scale, last year we moved $936 billion through our systems, right? Close to 1 trillion, right? We've moved. Now, any entity, whether it is the banks or the card networks, the Visas, MasterCards, the Amexes of the world, anybody who moves money is inherently subject to some amount of fraud risk, because there are several bad actors in the world whose only job it is to siphon off and skim something off the top. So they will try, they have 9 to 5 jobs just doing that. They're trying to commit fraud. So any financial entity like PayPal has to defend itself against that fraud. Will you win 100% of the time? Probably not. But PayPal is one that wins more than anybody else. So our fraud loss rates are so low that other companies are very envious of it. That is why our financial performance is so strong, because we lose lesser to fraud than any other financial institution in the world.
Wow. And this is something very interesting, because every time we talk about fintech and payment companies, exactly like you said, moving mountains of money, this fraud percentage is a very common, it's like part of the business. It's over the years, it's literally become part of the business, where you assume a certain percentage of loss via fraud, because it's just inherent. And you guys are obviously, at the beating that on the front foot, so to speak, with all the tech that you have. Do you is this, I mean, it's a absolute layman but a question, but I want to ask, like, is there no way to completely sort of eradicate this? Are you going towards that?
Yeah, I'd say that it's something like world peace, right? We will aspire to it and we'll constantly strive towards it. Will we ever achieve it? It's because the bad, nefarious actors in the system have access to technology as well. It's not like they don't
Yeah.
have access to it. So it's like a cat and mouse game. There's constantly, one gets in front of the other and then the other one keeps chasing around. So
Wow.
it's like this in perpetuity, Tom and Jerry show that's going on, right?
Awesome.
Between the good guys and the bad guys. So that's our intent will constantly be to make things better and better and better. And the fact that we are able to improve on what is actually already stellar fraud mitigation performance year over year is evidence that we are winning.
Yeah.
Though at the scale at which we operate in sheer concrete dollar terms, one year's number might be greater than the previous year. In terms of percentages, we are shrinking the amount of money we lose to fraud every single year.
Yeah.
And that is the strength of power of technology. We are constantly being able to marry technology with human intuition, what we call as augmented intelligence, and take a very story-based approach around people's lives, right? It's not, otherwise biases that tend to creep into algorithms. If you're just taking a blind, I'm just going to use reinforced learning and deep learning to just constantly improve my algorithms. You need a little bit of human oversight to sniff out specific human nuances there, both on the good side as well as on the bad side, so
Yeah.
that your algorithms are that much more intelligent because they are augmented with machine as well as human intelligence.
So
So,
that's really interesting, right? I mean, like
yeah.
PayPal's always been known as like, company at like the absolute cutting edge of like, all kinds of technical innovations and stuff like that, right? But the fact that you're inserting a certain degree of human kind of thinking or analysis into the algorithm, can you kind of talk a little bit more about that? Like, can you give some examples of
Sure.
there's the famous example of like, it was always considered fraud if sneakers and gas was bought on the same day, right? Like, I mean, like, and that was a really
I
old
haven't
example,
heard.
right? From,
I
oh,
haven't
Yeah,
heard.
really?
I
Haven't?
haven't heard
Yeah.
that one, but
Oh,
yeah.
really? So it was. This was like I remember reading about this like a bunch of times, like 2004, 5, that time frame, where it was
Yeah.
always considered fraud that if somebody got your credit card in the U.S., they would fill gas twice in that day and they would buy a pair of sneakers because those are
Uh,
like, the typical activities of a fraudulent kind of this, right? So wow, okay, I didn't know that I would be telling you something you hadn't heard before about this
It's so
space.
old, Amit.
It's
It's
very
like
old. It's
machines have solved
very
that
old.
10 years ago.
I know. No, no.
yeah,
That's why so my
yeah,
question was around, like, are there examples like that maybe you could kind of give
sure.
us so that we can.
I can. So let me talk. I mean, some of these are probably going to be naive examples, but they will probably serve to naive from a human standpoint, right?
Hmm.
For a machine, it might be super complicated, but like because for you, when you look at something, if it looks like a cat, you'll be able to tell it's a cat. For a machine, it's not that straightforward. So
Mm.
similarly,
They need to see a
let's take an
million photos
example.
of cats. Yeah.
Correct. You have to see a million photos of cats before you can, kind of vaguely distinguish that something may
Yeah.
be a cat. Not even 100% say it's a cat. It may be
Yeah.
a cat. Right. So let's take an example where, let me take uh, a good situation. Let's say um, PayPal detects that a person usually transacts within the United States in different cities and very regular. The person one day is transacting in New York, another day is transacting from Memphis, sometimes maybe from San Francisco, etc. And you've seen this pattern enough. This is a regular buyer, and so your algorithm has already figured out that this person travels quite a bit and is hence okay, right, with this. Uh, and suddenly you see a transaction from Bangkok, Thailand for this person. So the very first time a machine is likely to encounter this, they're likely to say, you know what, this is not, we're going to decline this transaction because this looks so different from the established pattern that it is potentially fraudulent. And so why take a chance? The safe approach will be, and especially if it's a high value transaction, right? Let's say it's for $800 or something like that, you're going to decline the transaction. Now, what if your assessment of the customer's journey told you that this person happens to be a pilot, and last week, while they are a domestic pilot within the US flying around usually, last week they purchased using PayPal a flight ticket to Thailand.
Hmm.
And they're off on a personal trip because their family is there or whatever, right? There could be multiple stories here. But if a human were to analyze a transaction that is sitting on the edge of, I don't know if this is right or wrong, and post-mortem, if let's say a human were to go and scan all the transactions and say, oh my god, this is one that we should have let through because this is actually a legitimate valid transaction.
Yeah.
Here we've gone ahead, and in the interest of safety, while we might have thought we've done the right thing, we've actually disappointed a customer who somewhere out in Thailand, they want to make a purchase, and PayPal, they've trusted them all their life, and now we've let them down. And that could happen. But instead, now if you were to use this human intervention to make your algorithm better, to go back and say, okay, let's look one step deeper every time we encounter a situation like this. Now suddenly your algorithm has become that much better. So
Right.
this is one example where human insight can make that all crucial difference between a dumb algorithm and an extremely smart
Yeah.
algorithm, right? And this is a very trivial example that I've given, but there are many, many such examples
Deeper.
where
Yeah.
it could get a lot more complex. The variables can be n-dimensional, if you so to speak, and then all of that comes into play, right? So it's a fascinating collaboration between human and machine that brings the best out of these algorithms.
And this is, I mean, this sort of focus on using tech plus machine plus human intelligence together is I mean, you guys are on the forefront of tech in payments. You guys are obviously, there's a large team also based out of India, right, which is
That's
doing
right.
a lot of the core work on the product side. What kind of innovation is being built here? If you could share a little bit about that, and of course, what's the latest in the emerging technologies that you guys use or focus on?
So a bunch of different things, Shiladitya. We've got, PayPal India is a microcosm of PayPal globally. So if you look at PayPal, the way we are organized, obviously we have a bunch of foundational platforms that, in a sense, subsidize software development for the rest of the company.
Mhm.
Those are the enabling pieces around the continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines, or your cloud infrastructure, etc. The teams that build a lot of those foundational pieces, many of them are in India. Then, if you go above that, there are a set of fundamental common platforms that the rest of PayPal uses. I lead one of them, the customer success platform. Similarly, there are platforms for identity, for payments, for risk, for analytics and credit and things like that. There are multiple platforms, compliance, a huge area that we work on.
Yeah.
All of these platforms, again, each of these platforms has huge teams in India. And then on top of that, there are products that manifest themselves as experiences that customers can consume. So when you go to a website and you see that Pay with PayPal button, underneath the hood there are several products that work
Right.
closely with each other to deliver that experience to you. And those teams also, many of them are based in India. And then sometimes you may not even know that behind the scenes it's PayPal doing the work. You go to a website, you are asked to enter, you're asked to use some instrument, your credit or debit card, etc. It could be one of PayPal's acquisitions. For example, we acquired a company called Braintree 8 or 9 years ago. Braintree does full stack processing, and while the PayPal brand may not surface up in that interaction, underneath the hood, it's actually PayPal doing your payment processing. So those are also there. So it's not just that we have branded experiences; we also have unbranded experiences that we surface in many of our customers' sites. So those teams that build those experiences are also here. Then there are several teams that take care of many foundational experiences, like for example, reporting. You need to generate reports for all your customers and for
Right.
all your sellers. The team that does that based out of India. There are teams that work on the data lake that we are building at PayPal to uh, take all the different sources of data and bring them under one umbrella, so to speak, so that we can serve many different analytics as well as real-time use cases. All of that. That's the a lot of that is in India as well. If I were to look at innovation as an index, several key pieces of functionality that got released in PayPal recently. For example, last year we had QR codes that we rolled
Yeah.
out to the rest of the world. Not big news in India because we have been used to pay QR codes for a while, but paradoxically in the US, suddenly it's the best thing since sliced bread,
Wow.
and you can pay for sliced bread as well with it. So QR codes, something that nobody knew about, and suddenly it's like we managed to in record time roll it out in the US. A lot of that was done in India. Engineers in India worked on that. The Paycheck Protection program in the US to help small and medium-sized businesses had a lot of work that went on behind the scenes from India.
Oh, that's
You've
awesome.
got in terms of just the number of patents that come out, the India centers are right up there with HQ, so to speak, in terms of how many we put out every year from the India centers. So a lot of very meaningful, innovative work goes on here. And I'm doing a big disservice to my teams because I've just quoted a couple of examples. When this finally goes live, I'm sure to hear from somebody saying, Guru, you never talked about the work that I did and my team did, and it's so much bigger than something. But there's one that is always popular. So, for example, we've just made an initial foray in a very big way into the world of cryptocurrency, and I'm probably giving you a segue into a topic that you're itching to talk about as well.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of that work, the foundational work underneath the hood, happened out of our centers in Bangalore and Chennai as well. So lots of good work happening.
But one of the things which we are waiting to talk about and which is interesting is obviously the entire cryptocurrency market and how that has become a mainstay of anything in payments also now when you talk about it, anything in fintech when you talk about it, right? How have you been seeing this? I want to ask, being in PayPal on the inside, you guys must have seen the early rise of cryptocurrency globally because people still pay via various methods to own cryptocurrency beyond just the crypto ecosystem. And now you guys officially also have a product for it. So tell us about
Okay.
tell us about what you sort of saw from, and decided to build into this ecosystem?
No, Sheila, this is a topic that I can talk till the cows come home, an area of personal passion as well, but it's just so germane to what's happening in the fintech ecosystem in the world around us today, right? For a long time, crypto, I would say, benefited from maybe a disproportionate amount of hype. There was so much news and noise around blockchain and crypto
Yeah.
and the dark web and etc. etc. So for a long time, I would say we kind of observed it with a certain curiosity because there seemed to be a lot more interest in trading crypto rather than using crypto. And one indicator of demand, if you will, would be if many of our sellers came to us saying, "Hey, can I accept you, using crypto?" That never really happened for a long time,
Hmm.
right? So we didn't see a need to truly bake it into the product until more recently. But as the pandemic has raged on, I think digital payments, the fintech ecosystem broadly, interest around crypto, decentralized currencies, etc., they've all gained traction. So very recently, a few months ago, we actually announced that PayPal users in the US right now, or it's only in the US, can buy, sell, and hold select cryptocurrencies directly through PayPal using their PayPal Premier or Cash Plus account. And
Oh,
at the time of going to the press, we are just supporting Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. And more recently, on the 30th of March, we actually announced that you would be able to use crypto in your checkout transactions as well. So if you are using
wow.
PayPal to actually buy something at checkout, you can use not just your bank account or debit card or credit card. You could also use crypto. So we just announced that. Again, this is only in the US right now.
Right.
We do have plans to expand this to other markets globally in the not too distant future. But our current exercise is primarily to learn from our customers to see how the market reacts to it, what we can do from a product perspective that will make them even more successful using crypto, and also learn from a variety of different ways in which people want to use crypto in other contexts other than checkout. So as you may or may not know, PayPal actually owns another brand called Venmo, which is
Yeah.
extremely popular, especially in the millennial and the college going segment in the US. So we do plan to bring crypto capabilities to Venmo as well in the very near future. So those are our primary priorities around crypto right now.
That's awesome. I mean, and again, when you thought of doing this, the like you said, the wave, the noise around crypto and blockchain has been sort of rising. I think it's now reached a point where it's every institution and every country for that matter which said we will not support it, or we will we don't believe it's a viable parallel ecosystem, has now sort of changed their stance, and everyone's sort of acknowledging it. So what is as a payment processor, what is your and maybe personally also, right, you said, right, what is the fundamental you can share that how do you now know that crypto is here to stay? Is it from transaction volumes you guys see? Is it from just the nature of what blockchain is? Are you using that technology, any sort of blockchain technology in your own systems? How much is that sort of adoption by the
Yeah,
PayPal
no, lot
platform?
lot to unpack there. So
Yeah.
maybe I should just say yes and leave it at that. No, there are multiple questions to which the answer is yes. So,
Sure.
are we using blockchain internally? Yes, in a set of different ways. In fact, we even have a large group that was created in as a very strategic capability within PayPal, especially around crypto and blockchain. So we have a VP level exec whose day job it is to just focus on these topics, along with a huge team underneath that's going to build out some of these capabilities. But our efforts in blockchain actually started off in a fun way internally. So during the course of working as a large company, there are multiple places where employees have to be rewarded and recognized. And there's an element where employees can recognize each other as well for good work that's done. Typically, it just takes the form of an email that goes out saying, "Hey, thanks a ton for doing what you did." So we actually decided to create an internal currency called WOW,
Oh,
built on an internal blockchain, which essentially hands out these WOW coins to people. And those WOW coins can be exchanged for either experiences or for PayPal merch or anything else that we choose to make available to our employees. So, for example, me as a site leader, I have a disproportionate advantage in quote unquote mining for these WoW coins because I have a role where I have to recognize a lot of people. So I have a built-in kitty of quite a few WoW coins. So I can now hand it out to people, and in exchange, they can purchase experiences. So, for example, one of the experiences would be for somebody in our Chennai center to play badminton with me when the offices were open, right?
yeah.
And have the pleasure of rubbing my face in the dirt on the badminton court, maybe. Or somebody who had said that one of the things they wanted to do was have a beer with me, and my only question was, why only one? I mean, I rarely stop at only one. Uh, so we have a bunch of things like that with Wow. So there's blockchain work going on. When it comes to cryptocurrency, why now? Tremendous interest in the world. Decentralization of fintech is accelerating. The demand from our customers on both sides of the aisle, both the buyers as well as the sellers, uh, to use crypto as an option was definitely going up. We also started to see the competitive landscape shifting around this. A lot of our competitors are also beginning to make moves in this space. So, as a fintech company that's agnostic to the currency or the funding mechanism that is used, our sole intention is to be there for the customer where they
Right.
need us, how they need us. So if crypto is how they want us to show up with, that's fine. That's, for us, it's just taking money from one side and handing it to another side, right? And facilitating that generation of trust in between. And especially with crypto, there's a lot of need in terms of the generation of trust, the prevention of fraud. All of those aspects are extremely relevant when it comes to cryptocurrencies as well. And we felt like we have a huge role in being able to not just participate, but also shape the way in which the industry evolves, and the best practices that we have evolved in other parts of our business, we could bring in and contribute to this area as well.
Nice.
Interesting. I
Wow.
remember reading something from someone like when the announcements came out, which I think speaks very deeply to this, right? Which is the idea that today, those of us who are somewhat interested in this space, we know Bitcoin and we know blockchain and we know public ledger and we know all these words. Most people are not going to know that. And PayPal implementing is the first step. All they're going to know is that I sent money and it got there immediately, which I thought was really interesting. Which I think is a big
Yeah.
part of, like, I think you're underestimating how, or you're underselling how big a deal this is, right? The fact that PayPal as a platform is supporting crypto, I think, is huge for the worldwide adoption of it.
Yeah, it I mean, the day PayPal announced, it was a very big deal because
Yeah.
it was a shot in the arm for the entire cryptocurrency
Yeah.
ecosystem, right? That a massive player like PayPal with 377 million customers around the world, and growing, and our next quarterly earnings report will show that we have grown even beyond that. If we are putting our muscle behind it, that's a very big boost for the ecosystem. And now that we have even opened up the ability to not just buy and hold crypto, but also use crypto at the point of purchase, that's an even bigger deal. And then us being able to bring it into other use cases like Venmo will only strengthen the ecosystem. So yes, as a behemoth in this space, I think this augurs very well for the whole decentralized currency ecosystem.
No, definitely. The fact that again we are talking about this obviously when at a time when even in India, right, people have finally sort of woken up to this. Just like my first experience of sending money into the internet was was made better because of the trust I put in PayPal. I'm sure a lot of people like this will put their trust in crypto because of PayPal as well. So
That's
it's
right.
most likely going to be that same thing happening again. But building on top of this, obviously there's a lot more to come. I mean, where does and this is something we ask a lot of folks who come on the show building very all of these innovative new startups, obviously a lot of fintech customers, fintech companies who are emerging. uh, Everyone has this sort of grand vision of obviously taking their idea and expanding it to the next stage. What do I ask a company like PayPal when they are so big already and they're so huge, and you're doing such the cool innovative stuff like crypto already? What do you have in your sort of grand plans in the future? What is the next frontier for PayPal?
So at a very high level, it is trying to make consistent and rapid progress on the mission that we have, right? To make sure that participation in the financial system is not the exclusive preserve of the wealthy, but it's the right, it's a fundamental human right that everybody can exercise. So our products, you will see, will rapidly become more ubiquitous in their reach in terms of being able to serve customers online, offline, facilitate use cases which are at the point of sale, in person, as well as virtual, etc. Right? That we will continue to spread across all the different places where the customers need payment services, and not just payments, but also financial services broadly. We have a pretty robust credit business as well, both on the consumer side as well as on the seller side. And then if you look at other aspects, we are rapidly making progress on even providing some basic services that everybody needs in terms of access to money, access to capital, etc., that we are facilitating for small and medium-sized businesses as well. In addition to that, if you look at the core experience that PayPal builds in terms of payments, that's an experience today that is somewhat rich in friction. So if you ever transacted on an e-commerce website, you will notice that uh, you derive a certain sense of comfort from having that OTP come to your phone.
Mm,
I will admit that I derive that sense of security as well, because
mm,
I say, okay, I'm on this website, I'm trying to buy something, I type in my credit card, I get an OTP. Good, because
yeah,
if somebody else is trying to do the same thing, I would get an OTP and I could immediately say, hey, wait a minute, this is not me, and there must be some
yeah,
fraud happening. So you feel good that there is a system like that. But if you flip it on its head, if you look at it from the seller's point of view, every single element of friction that you insert into the buying process results in a certain percentage of drop off.
yeah.
Mhm.
Something could happen, right? As you're getting the OTP, your network fails, your internet conks out, your dog barks in the distance in a very painful way, and you want to go
Doorbell
attend to it,
rings. Yeah,
whatever,
so
right?
many.
Right. So at that time, you suddenly say, "Oh, oops, let me come back to this later." And when you come back to it,
It's not
that
the same.
purple party shirt with frills at the neck probably don't look that attractive anymore, and you're not going to buy it anymore. So for a seller, now this is bad, right? What would be wonderful from a seller's perspective? Seamless, frictionless. And the same holds true for a buyer as well. Like, if you've ever taken an Uber in a market like the US, for example, there's a certain magic moment when you get out of the car and you don't have to pay anything. You just get out and you walk out. The payment is kind of seamlessly handled in the background, right? So the ability for payments to recede into the ambient background, that's something that should be the north star for payment companies. Why does an OTP exist? It exists to insert trust, to insert security. If there is a better way to do it, if there are other ways through which this identity and this aspect of the person saying who they are, having what only they have, and being able to know only what they know, that comes in together to form this basis of security today in e-commerce. If there was a different way to glean it implicitly, that would make the experience not just safer, it would make it more seamless as well. The idea is to make it not just seamless and not safe. The idea is to make it seamless and safe, right? And safer and more seamless. So our intent at PayPal is to continue to find ways to push that payment to make it recede into the ambient background so that it
Nice.
doesn't come in the way of the core experience that the customer wants as well as the seller wants. So those are some of the big things that we are focusing on at PayPal.
Nice. And I mean, I have to ask, what kind of team are you building to actually do this? I mean, again, this is one of those, the kind of, I would say, companies where you look at, you use obviously the best tech. You have so many massive sort of various product lines.
People can
What
come
is
and
it?
work internally to build internal blockchain projects.
Yeah,
Forget the
yeah.
external
You
ones.
have your
Yes.
own wow coin. So again, what is it? What's the next cutting edge of folks you guys are? I mean, again, it's just like a shout out to the kind of people you're hiring, the kind of culture you have.
Yeah.
What is it that someone would want to, jump on board this amazing sort of journey to make things seamless?
So I'll probably take some time to talk about this in a little more detail, Shiladitya and Amit. So it's about multiple things. One is I guess I'll start off by saying it's also about the kind of company that we're trying to build, right? Um, it's not just about the kind of people that we're trying to hire and the kind of tech that we are trying to bring to bear, but first of all, what kind of company do we want to be? And I give huge credit to our CEO Dan Schulman, where he leads by example, where the company wants to be a force for good. Um, Everything that we talk about is not just payments. We talk about aspects like Black Lives Matter, and we talk about you know severe systemic issues in terms of disparity around the world, and those are the kinds of things that drive decision making at PayPal. And it's not just profit margins and the revenue flowing to the bottom line, and that makes a big difference to who we are as a company. Right? I'll give you a simple example. A lot of our compensation plans depend on stock, right? Stock forms a significant part of compensation pay. The compensation philosophy at PayPal is founded on stock being a significant component because we are a growing company and we believe that employees should be participating in that growth. If you look at most companies, that ability to own stock is restricted to, I'm not saying a few, but it's
Yeah,
not open to everybody in the company, right?
yeah,
It's, of course, you can participate through stock purchase plans, etc. But stock options or restricted stock units that you get are usually handed out to certain segments of the company. Uh, Dan and the executive leadership team at PayPal took a very conscious decision saying, if we are a financial inclusion company that is fighting for financial inclusion, then our journey begins at home first. First and foremost, every single employee at PayPal should have the means to afford a good life for themselves.
hmm,
And a part of that is making sure that every single employee at PayPal has the ability to own PayPal stock, right? So our stock schemes touch every single employee at PayPal.
nice.
It includes even the employee making the least amount of money, maybe as a frontline employee serving customers in customer support or any of the other administrative functions. Everybody has access to participate in the stock plans at PayPal, and that's a conscious decision,
Wow.
though it may not be the smartest economical decision from a company's bottom line perspective, but it's the right decision because we want to be a company that walks the talk, right? So at its very heart, PayPal is a good company. We're a force for good on the planet, and that drives the kind of people that we want to hire as well. Of course, we want to hire the best and brightest. We want to hire people who are really awesome at what they do, but we also want to hire people who are good human beings first and foremost, for whom the mission that we have is not just a means to earning a salary, but it's the work of their lifetime as well. It's something that where they want to come in and treat it like the best work that they will do in their life, while at the same time having the time of their life. So
Right.
we want to build a workplace that facilitates that kind of an individual to truly come and bloom and thrive at PayPal, right? So that's the underpinning of everything. Then, if you look at it, we are a growing company. We have massive ambitions. We want to be able to, by 2025, we are projecting that we would double our the size of our customer base. So we are talking about 750 million customers by 2025. We are talking about, you know, revenues in several orders of magnitude higher than where we are today. A market cap that will hopefully keep pace commensurate with the kind of progress we're making. Free cash flow that continues to wow all of our stakeholders and truly allow us to invest in the business the way we need to. All of that, right? So we are hiring in a very big way across the world, and in India especially. So we are hiring, upwards of 1,200 people this in the early part of the year, and possibly more to
Wow.
come in the latter half of the year as well. And these are roles across the board: full stack engineering, back end. You've got data scientists. We are hiring great product managers. We are hiring cloud specialists across the board. Every single thing that you can think of in terms of being a need for a high scale company like PayPal, we are hiring in India. And we are hiring at all levels of seniority, all the way from senior director all the way to fresh college grad. We are hiring all levels, all roles. And we want to hire people who are good human beings, who come in with the intent to do something good for the world. And we want to create an environment where we bring them on board, we allow them the freedom to come and truly uplift the company and make it better than what it is today. Because we don't have the illusion that we are a company that knows everything. We believe that people who come in should make us better than who we are, and that's why we are hiring the best and brightest. So, for those of your listeners who are looking for something that is really meaningful and at the very bleeding edge of scale, in terms of learning lots and every day being something exciting, I'm living proof that PayPal is a place like that. I've been here for
Awesome.
5 years and I still have a lump in my throat and a twinkle in my eyes when I talk about PayPal because of how much I love the company.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And again, I'm the sheer volume of people you're getting on board, as well as obviously all the things we just spoke about, definitely goes to show that there's a lot more to be done, and a long way to go. This is awesome. I mean, thank you for sharing that, Guru. I mean, and appreciate all the insights that you shared with us today. Of course,
Thank you for that.
you did the shout out. I think everyone listening, hopefully, is obviously inspired. Some of us are inspired to sort of reach out. Do you want to share like a contact or the best way to reach you? As closing thoughts for this conversation.
So we are across a different set of channels. We are very alive and active. But if for those of you who want to go and take a look at our jobs portal, it's a very simple short URL that I can share with you. It's bit.ly/pp India jobs, all one word. So
Nice.
bit.ly/India pp India jobs. Just go there. All of our jobs are listed, and constantly hundreds of new ones coming onto that portal every day. And we are waiting, and we've
Awesome.
got beautiful offices: Chennai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. Really state of the art, fun workplaces that truly inspire. And we can't wait to get back into the office. We
Yeah, I
can't
was
wait for this
gonna.
damn pandemic to be over. And yeah, last year we hired close to 1,500 people, and these people have never seen one of our offices because we've been working from
Wow.
home
Yeah.
all through,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And such a pity. We've got all these beautiful places that are waiting to be occupied. So just all I'll say is stay safe, mask up, stay socially distanced, so that we can all get back to doing what we all love doing, which is meeting each other.
Yeah. Indeed.
Aw-
Indeed.
Awesome, great. I'll just do a quick thing to everybody. Please, if you have enjoyed the show, subscribe wherever you're listening, whatever podcast platform you're using to listen. Do subscribe. That's very helpful. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, particularly, please do go out and give us a review. Those reviews really do help with people finding finding out about the show. So please do that.
Absolutely. And thank you, Guru, for so much. I mean, this was a fabulous conversation. I always love, hearing more and more about PayPal and obviously everything in the fintech space. This was really insightful. Thank you so much for that. We hope a lot of folks listening, found this interesting as well.
Thank you so much, Aditya and Amit, and your entire team. And I'm still going to hold you to one thing. If this were in person, I'm assuming that samosa and a nice masala chai would have been mine
Absolutely.
At the end of it. So I will still wait to get that from you guys at some point when we meet.
I hope so too.
And I hope to do have the same if once the pandemic is over and we visit these awesome PayPal offices that you spoke about.
Absolutely. Yes.
Superb.
Thank you.